I've never been fond of the months following December, January, February and March. Um, I don't even like to leave the house. I feel I should be asleep, that my body wants to hibernate, that my mind wants nothing of the cold and the gloom. Um, and I try to go out as little as I can. I mean, I have to. There is work. There are people that must be seen. But it's nice to be mainly in bed and reading. Um, However, for this February, I've only got a few books in the February haul, as it is not uncommonly known. First is Ali Smith's Autumn, a beautifully published book by Hamish Hamilton in a really rather glorious cloth cover. It's been called the first Brexit novel, whatever that means. I guess I shall discover. The next book is interesting. I'm actually about a quarter of the way through it. It's called Why Religions Matter by John Balker, an academic, and it's published by Cambridge University. Now please note, it's called Why Religions Matter, not why religions are true or why religions are good. His argument in it, I think, is very important, is that Western culture lacks religious literacy. We're all taught these days that we need media literacy, design literacy, a kind of science literacy. But actually religion, both historically and in the present, plays very fundamental role in what kind of societies we live in, what our societies are based on. A kind of cultural literacy is always, especially in the West, has been built on religions. And if we don't understand how religions operate in a more subtle and nuanced way, then perhaps people who advocate a completely secular society or are part of the new atheist shrillness, then we are lacking a sophistication in the argument about whether we want to support religions or whether we feel religions need to be transcended and moved on from. But we need religious literacy, and it's an extraordinarily erudite piece of work. It brings in much of historical and contemporary science, neuroscience, philosophy, cultural studies, etc. And I think it's a brilliant book so far. The Bridge of San Luis Rey, which by Thornton Wilder, which I found this amongst my father-in-law. He's not my father-in-law because I'm not married to my partner, but ostensibly my father-in-law. It's a novel that it has been mentioned in stuff I've read for decades, and I've never read it, and so I will. What's particularly poignant is all of Richard's books, of which I have 3,000 of them now. He died last year. Always has a train ticket in it, and so I know when he was reading the book, often unfinished. This comes from the year, where is it? Can't see now. Anyway, I did see 21st of October 93. But it's a very old edition. It's from 1929. And it's always interesting to read books in their originally published form. It kind of gives a sense of a little bit of sense of what it must be like to read a book then. Okay, so that's that. Then I have, and I obviously read a lot of books by Fitzgerald Edition because they send them to me. This is The Doll's Alphabet by Camelia Grudova. It's written in English, just in case you thought it might be translated. These are very strange, apparently, short stories, very short stories. It says in the tradition of Angela Carter and Margaret Atwood. So yeah, Aristotle's eye's view is a total delight and surveys a world awash with shadowy wit, exquisite collisions of beauty and the grotesque. So that's good. Um, my second book of theology is The Paul Debate by N.T. Wright, a professor at St Andrews. It's very short. What's interesting about this is essentially it's a kind of primer on Professor Wright's magnum opus, which is 1,700 pages on St Paul. It's called St Paul and the Faithfulness of God. Now what's interesting, of course, is that many people who call themselves Christians, in fact, are not Christian in the truest sense. They're Pauline, because much of Christian dogma and kerygma, which is teaching, is essentially comes from the letters of St Paul. He's the great theologian, or great first theologian of Christianity, and a theologian of genius, and a philosopher of genius, and a genius of rhetoric, and an incredibly subtle thinker. Now I have problems with St Paul. He has views that obviously I find reprehensible, but he is his positioning of the Messiah, Christos, in first century Jewish thought, it's extraordinarily subtle and well argued that I find it absolutely riveting. Now I don't count myself as a Christian, or because I don't count myself as a Pauline Christian. I mean, if I read the Gospels, I would certainly align myself with the thinking of Jesus, but that doesn't make me a Christian. But I will read St Paul and the Faithfulness of God, but I just needed to check that that I was going to get it, that I was going to find the position credible, and that it was worth 1,700 pages, and it is, if that's your subject, because it's quite a commitment. And then lastly, a very large novel by Kia Cawthron, The Castle Cross, the Magnet Carter. Very large. She's an American novelist. She's actually a dramatist. This is her first novelist. She's a bit older than me. She's 50-something. I saw her read the other day in London. This is published by an American, Seven States Publishing. Is it Seven States? That's what it's called. Let me just check, because I wouldn't want to get their name wrong. Seven Stories Press, sorry. It's a very nice cover, very beautifully published book. She's a dramatist. She's won awards for her stage work. She's also won an award for her episode of The Wire in the 4th series, one of my favourite shows. But I saw her read, and because she's an actress, she read with the kind of vividness of an actor, and therefore it was quite an extraordinary experience, and there was a lot of us there. And when she started, she said, I'm going to read 3 pieces about 8 minutes long each, and you could hear the kind of collective, oh my God. But after the third reading, someone suggested she read some more. Everyone wanted more. It was essentially like a one-woman show. Extraordinary. Obviously I haven't read it, but there clearly are lots of monologues in this. It's in this book, and she clearly finds writing monologues, and the fact that in monologues in novels they can go on for several pages in the way you can't do that in the theatre. So I think she felt kind of liberated by the novel form. I also think quite a lot of the writing in the early, because it spans from about 1941 up to present day, and she's an African American writer. So it's not predominantly about race, although race clearly is an important part about it, but because it spans 2 sets of brothers from that point onwards. Quite early on, the monologues are of young children, of which she read them extraordinarily. But of course, you can't really do that on the stage. You can't have extended monologues, acted by children, very young children. At one point, sort of 6. And so clearly in the novel she's able to do this. but you just, when she started reading, I mean, and it wasn't just the performance, you just realised that her dramatic gifts in rendering dialogue, interior monologues and exterior monologues, is just going to make for something that has pure joy in the reading experience. So I am, based on the readings, I highly recommend this, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I think anybody who's, finds the kind of the big American novel a hugely enriching experience, of which there are many, and they're often allowed through because they're the authors have had big books before, and therefore they don't get into great deal of editing. This seems to me to be just not have that issue, but just be a big book that spans the great American century, because clearly this one isn't going to be. So highly recommended based on that. Thank you very much.